Hello viewers, welcome to K-Diagnostics, Dio here. Today we have a 2007 Dodge Sprinter with a 3.0 liter. The complaint on this Sprinter is the check engine light remains on while the engine is running. The driver also stated that this van is losing power tremendously. It's really difficult for this van to go over 25 miles an hour while it's being driven up a hill. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go inside the vehicle and confirm the driver's complaint. After confirming the complaint, we're gonna connect a scan tool to the vehicle to see what kind of trouble codes we have in the engine computer. So now let's go inside the vehicle and confirm the driver's complaint. So right there, as you can hear, the engine is running and the check engine light remained on. Let me zoom you guys in the dash. So right there, check engine light remained on while the engine is running. So customer's complaint confirmed. We have some other messages over here on this dash display, but we're gonna focus on the check engine light, okay? So the check engine light is remaining on while the engine is running. We have confirmed that. So now I'm gonna turn off the engine. I'm gonna turn the key back on. I'm gonna get the scan tool connected to the vehicle. After I get the scan tool connected, I'll bring you guys back up so we can scan the engine computer. So I got the scan tool connected to the vehicle. So now let's scan the engine computer and see what we got. So let's go to scanner. So the scan tool has identified the vehicle. So let's click OK. So let's do a code scan. This is gonna scan all the control units on the vehicle. We have 4 trouble codes in the engine computer. The first trouble code is P0299 and it says refer to OEM repair information for code description. And then the second one is 2028 O2 sensor pump current open circuit. And the third one is 2011 mass airflow sensor deviation too low. And then the fourth one is 2359 and it says charge pressure control boost pressure too low. Okay, so what we need to consider is that one trouble code can cause other trouble codes to be set. Okay, so one component being faulty can cause a lot of trouble codes to be set. And what we need to remember here is that we have to really think about what component might be causing this vehicle to lose power. Okay, so since we have a mass airflow sensor trouble code, a mass airflow sensor trouble code can cause a vehicle to lose power because the mass airflow sensor measures the amount of air that enters the engine. As it measures that amount of air that enters the engine, it sends that information to the engine computer, and the engine computer uses that to know how much fuel it should dump inside the cylinders. And this charge pressure control boost pressure too low trouble code can be caused by either an actuator issue on the turbo, the actuator of the turbo itself that actuates the vanes on the turbo, or we could have a leak between the turbo and the intake manifold. Okay, and we could also have an O2 sensor that's not working properly. So now let's scroll down and see what other trouble codes we have in the other control units. We have one code in the tire pressure control unit. So that's it. And we have 2 trouble codes on the generic side of the tool. The first one is P0101 mass or volume airflow sensor A circuit range / performance. And the second one is P0299 turbocharger / supercharger A underboost condition. So this underboost condition here is what's causing this van to lose power. Okay, So now what I'm gonna do is, let's go into the engine computer. Okay. So we got all these trouble codes here. Let's back out. Let's look at some data, because I was told that this vehicle is losing power tremendously. So let's graph the boost pressure, and then we're gonna take this for a spin and see how it drives. Okay, so now I'm gonna start the engine. So the engine is running, the check engine light is still on. So let's take this for a spin and see how it drives. Let's see if we're gonna experience that low power concern that the driver is talking about. So let's drive this and see what happens. Alright, so we're driving and we're doing about 40 miles an hour right now. I'm flooring this, okay? I'm actually stepping on the accelerator pedal all the way to the floor, and this van is not picking up at all. This van doesn't have any power. So something is wrong with this van, and we need to figure out what it is. So I'm actually flooring the accelerator pedal right now. I'm all the way to the floor. Look at that. We're definitely losing power. Now, I hear a loud hissing sound coming from under the hood. I don't know if the camera is going to be able to pick this up. There is a hissing sound coming from under the hood. So this hissing sound sounds like we're losing boost pressure. It's like the charged air that the turbo is compressing is not making it all the way to the intake. Now, let's stop here really quickly. I'm gonna bring up our scan tool. So this is basically the max boost pressure that we were able to achieve over here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to back out of here. I wanna erase all these trouble codes. Okay, let's erase all these trouble codes and keep driving and see which trouble codes will come back after that. So let's try to read the codes again. So right now, as you can see, we don't have any codes present, so that's good. Let's go back to data. Let's go to boost PSI control. Okay, I'm gonna graph these two data feeds here. Okay, so as you can see, the check engine light went off because I did erase the trouble codes. Now let's drive and see what happens. I don't know if you can hear the hissing sound. I hope you can hear that. There's a hissing sound coming from under the hood. Now, after erasing the trouble codes, I feel like the van is driving slightly better, but I still hear a hissing sound coming from under the hood. I don't know if the camera is picking this up very well, but if the camera is not, I just want you guys to take my word for it. It sounds like all the compressed air that the turbo is compressing is not making it to the intake. So it kind of sounds like we have a leak between the turbo outlet and the intake manifold. So let's keep driving. I want to drive up a little hilly section to see how this van is gonna do. Yeah, so I'm flooring it now, and we are barely going over 30 miles an hour. I don't know if the camera is picking up that hissing sound coming from under the hood. There is definitely a loud hissing sound coming from under the hood when I'm accelerating. So the check engine light is still off. Now let's go up this little hill over here and see how this van does. So I'm going up the hill. Whoa, we're losing power tremendously. So the max we're doing here is 25 miles an hour. And it sounds like we're losing charged air. Like there's a loud hissing sound coming from under the hood. Yeah, all that boost pressure is not making it to the intake manifold. We are leaking charged air. So let's drive back to the shop. We're gonna put this van on the lift. We're gonna do a visual inspection first under the hood. Hopefully we can find where our leak is. So I'm gonna drive back to the shop, and then I'll bring you guys back up once I get to the shop. Alright guys, so we are back here at the shop. This van is definitely losing power. So let's back out and see if there's any trouble codes that came back. Let's scan this and see what happens. So right there, the code that came back is this 2359 trouble code. Charge pressure control boost pressure too low. Okay, so since this is the only trouble code that came back, we're gonna focus on this trouble code. Okay, so we are leaking boost pressure based on how this engine sounds when I was driving. It sounds like there's a boost leak somewhere under the hood. Okay, this code can be caused by a boost leak, or a defective boost pressure sensor, or a turbo that's not pressurizing enough air for the engine to run properly. But I don't think that's the issue here. The issue is most likely a leak that we might have somewhere under the hood, because there's a loud hissing sound coming from under the hood. So I'm going to drive inside the shop. We're gonna put this van on the lift, and then we're gonna do a visual inspection under the hood and see what we're gonna find. So I'm gonna put this van on the lift, and then I'll bring you guys back up so we can do a visual inspection under the hood. Alright guys, so I got the vehicle on the lift, so let's do a visual inspection here. So let's look around this tube over here and see if we're gonna find anything obvious. So nothing on this side. Let's check out this tube. Interesting. So this is weird. So now I'm gonna lift up the van so we can check underneath around the charged air cooler. Alright, so we got the van up in the air. So I see a lot of oil around this secondary AC compressor here. It looks like we have a leak somewhere. where is this oil coming from? Okay, so we're gonna check the charge air cooler. I know these coolers tend to crack on the sides here. So this side looks pretty good. We need to figure out where this oil is coming from. So now let's check the other side. Now our turbo might be leaking internally also, because we shouldn't have a lot of oil around these tubes. So the fact that we have a lot of oil over here, that tells me that the turbocharger on this van is most likely leaking internally. But for now, let's focus on our boost leak first. I'm pretty sure we have a boost leak somewhere here. So the charge air cooler over here looks good. So now what I want to do is I'm gonna lower the van. I'm gonna bring out my smoke machine. We're gonna send smoke through the inlet tube and throughout the charge air cooler and see where our leak is. If there is a leak somewhere, smoke will be leaking out of wherever the leak is. Okay, so now I'm gonna lower the van so we can send some smoke down the induction system. So I got the smoke machine out. I got it powered up and ready to go. So now I'm going to disconnect this turbo inlet tube. So this tube over here goes down to the turbo inlet. I'm gonna undo this clamp and then I'm gonna disconnect this. Now we're gonna use this easy intake to send smoke down this tube. Okay, so let's make sure we adjust it well. Okay, so that's good. So now I'm gonna turn on our smoke machine. So we're gonna wait until smoke starts coming out of this tube, and then we're gonna connect it to this hose over here. So what this is gonna do is it's gonna send smoke down the turbo and through the turbo and through the turbo outlet. Okay, the turbo outlet tube is on this side of the engine, so it's gonna go down this tube and into the inner cooler and back this way and into the engine. So it's gonna make a big loop, and if there's a leak somewhere between this turbo and the intake manifold, smoke will be coming out of it. Okay, so as you can see, we got smoke coming out of this tube. So now we're gonna connect it to this tube over here. Okay, so we got this connected. So now we're gonna watch and see if we have a leak somewhere, and if we do, smoke will be coming out of it. Okay, so right now our check ball is sitting up, so let's wait a couple minutes and see what happens. All right, so as I'm observing this, I see smoke coming down this way. I don't know if the camera is gonna pick this up, but there's definitely smoke coming up this way. Okay, so let's crawl under the van and see if we can find where this leak is. Okay, so we are here under the van. We have a leak somewhere down this tube. I don't know if, wow, this hose over here is hardened. Wow, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to show it to you. So here is the leak. Let me try to zoom you guys there so you can see. Do you see smoke coming out of there. You see that? So that's smoke, guys. This over here is smoke leaking. I hope you can see. So there's a leak right there. You see smoke coming out, and it looks like it's coming out of the charge air cooler outlet tube. Oh wow, you see this right here? So this tube over here, the charge air cooler outlet tube, has a cut. So there's a cut over here. So this is where smoke is leaking from. Okay, there's your problem, lady. Well, this is going to be a quick and easy one. So this tube over here is torn. Okay, there's a tear on this tube over here. So this here is the problem. You see that? Now smoke is no longer coming out of this because our smoke machine is most likely off right now. I'm gonna go turn it on again, and after that you will see smoke coming out of this crack over here. So this is the problem, guys. So we are back up here. Our smoke machine went off, so let's turn it back on. Let's go back under the van and look at that leak a little bit more. So we are back under here. So let me zoom you guys in so you can see. Okay, so you see that crack? Now just wait a little bit. Smoke will start coming out of it. So the hissing sound I was hearing was all the charged air that the turbo is putting out is not making it to the intake manifold. So all our boost pressure is leaking out of this. You see that? Yeah, so right there. Right there. You see smoke coming out? Okay. Alright. So that's the problem, guys. So this is going to be a quick and easy one. So let me grab our flashlight. So this hose over here has to be replaced. We need to replace this hose. So let's go back under the hood and turn off our smoke machine, and then we're going to come back under here so we can remove this hose. Alright, so we saw where our leak is. We can turn this off. We're gonna have to remove the charger cooler outlet tube. So we are done with this. So we can remove our bladder. Alright, so now let's lift up the van all the way so we can remove that charger cooler outlet tube. Alright, so we're back under the van. So now we're gonna remove this tube. I'm gonna start by undoing this clamp over here first. Now, I don't like this oil leak that we have over here. So our turbo is most likely leaking internally. We're gonna replace this tube. We're gonna test drive the van and see if the van is gonna drive any better. But eventually this turbo over here has to be replaced. Okay. So I got this clamp over here undone. There's another clamp up there. You guys probably won't be able to see it. It's way up there. I'm gonna undo it off camera and then I'll bring you guys back up so we can remove this tube. Alright, so I got the tube disconnected from up there. So now we're gonna disconnect this side now. So here comes our hose that was on the outside, on the outlet of the charge air cooler. So here's the problem, guys. You see this? Now all this oil over here is a little bit excessive, okay? A little bit of oil on these tubes is not bad, but if you have too much, that can cause these hoses over here to crack. So I'm pretty sure our turbo is leaking internally, okay? I'm gonna recommend replacing this turbo, but for now we're gonna replace this tube first, and then we're gonna see how this van is gonna drive. But this turbo has to be replaced, okay? So let me show you again what we did up there. So this clamp, I don't know if you can see it, this clamp over here is what I had to undo. So I had to push this clamp back, okay, to pull the hose down. So now I'm gonna push it back in place. I'm gonna make sure it's sitting properly. Okay, so as you can see, it's back in place. So now I'm gonna grab the new hose and just push it up there so it can sit back in place. Okay, so replacing this hose is pretty straightforward and pretty easy. Now I have one of these hoses over here in stock, so I'm gonna grab a new one so we can install it. So once again, here is the old hose. So this crack over here is what was causing our boost pressure to leak out. Now this is the new one, and here is the Mercedes part number. Okay, so right there. So this is what we're gonna install. As you can see, it looks nice and clean. Okay, so bad one, we're gonna throw this in the trash, and after we install this tube, we're gonna erase the trouble codes, and after erasing the trouble codes, we're gonna test drive the van and see how it drives after that. Okay, so let's install this hose and see what happens. All right, so now we're gonna install the new hose. Now I'm gonna have to use both hands to push this hose all the way up, guys. Okay, so that clamp up there is really hard, so I'm gonna have to use both hands to push this up. So I'm gonna push this new hose all the way up, and then I'll bring you guys back up. I have installed a new charge air cooler outlet hose. I tightened this clamp over here, so everything is back together. We're good to go. Okay, so let's double check this side. So this hose over here is not cracked, so we're good. So now I'm gonna lower the van so we can go on a test drive. So now we're gonna reconnect this tube to the air filter box. I'm gonna tighten this clamp over here, and then we're gonna go in the van and erase the trouble codes. Alright, so this clamp is tightened. So now let's go back in the van. We're gonna erase the trouble codes, and then we're gonna take this for a spin. So I'm gonna turn the key on. The scan tool dongle is still connected. So let's see what we got. Remember, after we had erased the trouble codes, the boost pressure code came back. The low boost pressure code came back. So I'm going to erase the code right now, and then we're gonna go for a test drive and see if this van is gonna drive any better. So right there, as you can see, only the charge pressure control boost pressure too low trouble code came back. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to erase all the trouble codes, and then we're gonna see what happens after we test drive the van. Now remember, we had a mass airflow sensor trouble code also, but this charge pressure control boost pressure too low trouble code can also cause a mass airflow sensor code to be set, because if all the charged air pressure that the turbo is putting out is leaking out from somewhere, the computer is now going to know exactly how much air is coming inside the engine. Now I'm going to back out and erase all these trouble codes. Let's erase all the codes from all the control units. Okay, so we got all the codes erased. Let's go back to the engine computer and make sure that we don't have any codes in memory. Right there, 0 codes present, so we're good. So now let's go for a spin. I already like the way this engine sounds. I don't hear a hissing sound anymore under the hood, so we're good to go. So let's take her on the road and see how she drives. The van has got a lot of power now, so this is awesome. This is fixed, guys. This van is fixed. So the problem was a cracked charged air cooler hose, and that hose was pretty much letting all the charged air that was coming from the turbo out. Wow, this van drives a lot better now. I don't know if the camera is picking that up. I don't know if you guys can tell, but it shifts well, it feels good. So this is fixed, guys. We have fixed this van. Now as we are driving, I want to stop here and pull up some data. Let's pull up some live data. I mean, when I was driving this earlier, I kind of ignored the data because I could already hear a loud hissing sound that was coming from under the hood, so that already told me that there was something wrong under the hood. Okay, so the noise, the hissing sound that I was hearing told me that we had a leak in the induction system. That's why I didn't focus too much on the data, because I used my ears to direct my diagnosis process. Okay, it was pretty obvious. Like, if we could listen and pay attention to the engine, we could really hear a loud hissing sound coming from under the hood, and I hope the camera did pick that up. So let's keep driving and see what happens. The van now has a lot of power, so everything feels good. So now we're gonna approach this little hill over here. So I'm gonna go full throttle on this hill. Let's see how fast we're gonna climb this hill. So I don't know if you can tell, now we're climbing up this hill around 45 miles an hour. Before, we couldn't even do 45 miles an hour on this hill. Like right now we're doing about 50, so I gotta slow down. Man, this van has got full power now. This is awesome. Now let me slow down. I'm gonna look at the data. Let's look at the data on the scan tool. So look at our boost pressure data pid. The max we hit is 2590 HPA. Okay, before we couldn't go past 1100 HPA. So this over here is good, guys. Okay, this is fixed. This van is fixed. So now let's drive back to the shop. I'm gonna drive back to the shop. Once I get to the shop, I will bring you guys back up. Alright guys, so we are back here at the shop. Everything feels good. This vehicle drives well. My battery is dying on my scan tool. So this is good. As we were driving, the maxed boost pressure that we achieved was 2613 HPA, which is a lot better than what we had before. Okay, so as you can see, the check engine light is still off. I'm gonna back out of here. Let's check for some codes. As you can see, no trouble codes present. I'm gonna turn the engine off. So let's turn off the engine. I'm gonna turn the key back on. Let's bring up the scan tool. Okay, let's exit out. So let's do a code scan once again before we wrap up this video. As you can see, right off the bat, we no longer have any trouble codes in the engine computer. So that's good. No trouble codes in the transmission computer. And we don't have any trouble codes on the OBG side of the scan tool. So we're good to go. This is fixed, guys. Okay. So now you might have a question about how I went the way I went about fixing this vehicle. The big giveaway for me was the hissing sound that I could hear when I was driving the vehicle. There was a huge hissing sound coming from under the hood when I was accelerating. So that was a telltale sign, okay, of a boost leak. So that already told me that I was losing boost pressure somewhere around the engine bay. Okay, so this was a quick and easy one. So I'm gonna leave this right over here. I hope you liked the video. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you don't like the video, give it a thumb down. But if you do, you gotta tell me why so we can make better videos in the future. If this is your first time here, subscribe to the channel. Ring the bell so you can get notified every time I upload a new video. Thanks for watching. See you next time.